Alrighty, hear me out. I had every intention in the world to talk about Iowa versus Penn State in a recap this week, but like I said in my last video, once again jump into the hype that is Penn State versus Iowa, which I swear every year is either drastically overhyped, and unfortunately I think it played out for the most part how people thought. Iowa stole some matches, and I use the term some very loosely, but Penn State did their job winning 8 of 10 matches for a final score 29-6. Now before we dive into what I really want to talk about, I will briefly mention the Penn State versus Iowa highlights and some of the fun moments from the duel. But that will all be to enhance the topic we are heading towards, which that topic is not about the fan favorite Nittany Lions, but instead the crazy team race for second place right behind Penn State. Do I think a team could take out Penn State this year? Well, anything is possible, I guess. But unless Penn State suffers a massive injury, which they already dealt with at 149 this season and replaced with, at worst, a round of 12 guy, I would predict very comfortably Penn State is the easy runaway at this point, to where it is almost boring to watch. But a more interesting topic, in my opinion, is the race for second. Right now, based on the Flow Wrestling rankings, Iowa State is in second place with 62.5 projected team points, followed by Oklahoma State, shout out Big 12, with 60.5 points, Iowa with 59.5, NC State with 57, Michigan with 53.5, and the list goes on and on and on, with several teams all fighting for the top 3 trophy spots. I'd even argue Cornell down at 11th has a chance to take home a team trophy and maybe even second place. It is kind of nuts how fun the team race will be, besides the top spot. But I have a lot to say and I can really ramble about these things, so let's dive into the team race for second in NCAA wrestling. Also, if you end up enjoying this video, be sure to leave a like, and I will always appreciate those who hit that subscribe button. If there is something I missed, feel free to leave it in the comment section below. Also, I will be highlighting a lot of teams, so stick around to the end of the video to find out my team race predictions. Now, my name is Tanner, this is TrueTan Wrestling, and let's officially dive in. So yeah, Penn State took out Iowa, keeping their dominant streak alive. But the Hawkeyes snuck some matches out of their magical Carver hat. Drake Al would get what seemed like an instant takedown to take the lead and keep the lead from Brandon Davis, which at this point, if you're not picking the underdog at 125, what are you doing? Roll the dice on the 33 seed in March, everybody. Caleb Ratchin won probably the only toss-up of the duel, taking Kasich to overtime, winning in front of the home crowd, kind of bringing Kasich back down to earth, but he is only a true freshman, so I'm sure he'll be ready for the postseason. Then after that, like I said, Penn State did their job. Messenbrink and Haynes destroyed the North Dakota State transfers, which, to be honest, I picked them to win, but I did not expect bonus point losses from the Hawkeyes. Maybe during Messenbrink's match, because he's just been dominating everybody, but I haven't seen Franek get beat that bad in a very long time. Brooks either looked a little off against Glazer, or Glazer is just better than advertised, which I think at this point is starting to become more and more true. The Big Ten really isn't that deep at 197, but I think Glazer could really push some of the big guns over in the Big 12, but we won't really know that until NCAAs. Finally, Bo Bartlett gave Real Woods his second loss of the season and looked pretty impressive doing it. Good win for Bartlett, and it really begs the question if Real is hurt based on his Lemley loss too, or maybe these guys have just developed a little better than him. Now, Iowa kind of got crushed 2 weeks in a row now by Michigan and Penn State. However, I think if all goes well, they can still come home with a team trophy. Glazer is looking like a potential low All-American, not confident in that at all, but Iowa is probably the favorite also to place in March, which I'm also not very confident in. Real Woods has looked off for 2 weeks in a row now, but he's probably still a top All-American pick, maybe just not a championship pick anymore. Plus, their North Dakota State transfers, Franek and Caliendo, have All-American before. However, 157 and 165 are meat grinder of weight classes, so how high they can All-American is really going to determine their placement. Moral of the video is going to be the team that wants to take home a team trophy really needs their fringe guys to slip into those All-American rounds, and their top 8 ranked/seeded guys for sure need to do their job in place. Iowa might have lost to Michigan, bringing them down to earth a little bit, but they do have a dual win over the current number 2 ranked team, Iowa State, who has looked pretty good all season, but I think they have a very risky team to invest in. And there's a few reasons for that. And to be honest, Iowa is also a very risky team to invest in, so don't take that the wrong way. Iowa State did win CKLV back in the beginning of the season, and that was a nice rebound after their Iowa duel. Their Big 12 season has also been going pretty well for them. However, they did just lose to Oklahoma State, which we'll get to in a minute. I think Iowa State is for sure a trophy contender, but a lot can go wrong for them, which is true for like 99% of the teams in the NCAA landscape right now. For example, Cody Chittum is having a great season with wins over All-Americans, along with losses to a lot of non-All-Americans. He's also a true freshman, so the NCAA tournament will be a huge test for him. Swiderski and Etchemendia have gathered some great wins over this season, but Etchemendia's style is really tough to navigate the NCAA tournament, and the same could be true for Swiderski. David Carr is probably a lock All-American for them, but I would argue he's not a lock finalist anymore, especially considering his loss to Ramirez at CKLV, which could really mess up the NCAA seeds, especially with how good Mitchell Messenbrick has been wrestling. Bastida and Feldkamp are also returning All-Americans, with Feldkamp being a bonus point go-getter, but if scouted right, he could drop some matches in March. Bastida, I would argue, is a lock All-American status at heavyweight, but we'll have to wait and see. Either way, they'll need him at NCAAs and conferences to place in the top 3. Then there is Oklahoma State, who was the previous number 2 just a week ago, and is currently undefeated in their dual schedule, beating teams like Iowa State and South Dakota State recently very handily 31-6. And that Jackrabbit team took out Michigan, so a very scrappy dual team. However, their down performance was at their only big tournament of the season, CKLV. They were missing Dayton Fix at that tournament, yes, but still struggled at a lot of weight classes. It seems like their young team mixed with All-American veterans is coming on strong here and developing well late in the season. I think Oklahoma State is pretty young, so I'm curious how some of those young up-and-comers are going to handle one of the biggest wrestling tournaments in the world. Even their former All-Americans have meat grinders of weight classes. I mean, Dayton Fix last year was a returning finalist and ended up taking 4th at 133, and that weight class is just as hard. Olejnik is probably in the toughest weight class in NCAA wrestling at 165, and Dustin Plott at 184, who honestly might have the best chance to make the finals for them. Iowa versus Oklahoma State is quickly approaching, and I'm really excited to talk about that with all of you. But for now, let's talk about a few more teams hunting down that second place trophy. Another strong contender in the hunt is, of course, Michigan, or Transfer U, as it seems like. Michigan did just get stopped by Nebraska, who seems like they're having another upswing here late in the season. But if the coaching staff can have the Wolverines peaking at the right time, I think they can easily take the number 2 spot. I mean, they have 6 returning All-Americans right now in the lineup, some of which have finished in the top 3 multiple times, along with guys like Dylan Ragusin, who is always an All-American threat, and young star Sergio Lemley, who beat Real Woods just 2 weeks ago. In the ACC, like almost every year, Virginia Tech and NC State are in the running for a team trophy, and they could both finish in that second place spot. Oddly enough, I don't think we've seen either of them at their full potential yet. It always seems like someone is hurt in both of their lineups. In some cases, it seems like it almost helps NC State's 125 situation, or the same is true for Virginia Tech's 125 situation. But either option there could either be an All-American or go 0-2 at the weight class. It's just hair pulling at this point. It's crazy. For NC State, their best point getter, in my opinion, is Trent Hidlay, staying undefeated on the year and probably the only person that can maybe beat Aaron Brooks. They have some other returning All-Americans that'll have to really step up, along with their young guys like Dylan Fishback at 184 and Arrington at 149. But he's a big question mark for me, even though he's ranked very high right now. Virginia Tech is in a similar boat with needing a few fringe guys to really step up, but they also just need to enter the tournament healthy. They can be a pretty tough team when they're really healthy. I think we'll get more questions answered during the ACC duel coming up, or there will just be more questions created. So let's just talk about another team, the Missouri Tigers. Missouri was another number 2 ranked team at one point, but after losing Cornell, they've fallen a good bit. But they still edged Cornell out of the top 10 somehow. It is crazy that a team ranked 10th right now has a legit shot to place in the top 3. I just think the Tigers will peak at the right time like they usually do. They're looking questionable in a few duels right now, but they have a lot of returning All-American firepower. Noah Cern is 12-2, which at 125 is very impressive. Plus he's a bigger pinner now than ever before. Keegan O'Toole is the king of the toughest weight class right now. Brock Mahler has lost some matches this year, but he always finds a way in the top 8, along with Rocky Elam at 197. Peyton Mako at 174 is looking a little bit off this season. I believe he was kind of banged up earlier in the season, but he's still a strong contender for All-American honors. Finally, Zach Elam at heavyweight has really impressed me with an undefeated record so far this season, looking like he wants to become a multiple-time All-American. Now, there's a lot of other teams I could have mentioned, like one of my favorites, Lehigh, who is currently in the top 10. But unless they go with Stanch at 125, I don't really think that will hold. Plus, it is the deadliest weight class right now at 125, so who knows. Nebraska is another team that has a very legit shot to take home a team trophy, with a lot of guys returning to their peak. They also just stomped Michigan, but their real test will be against Penn State this weekend. Cornell also has some really good wrestlers right now that are just ranked a little low due to some early season performances, but they could shine way higher in my opinion. And to be honest, there's probably a lot more teams I could have mentioned here, but this weekend could totally change everything up. Either way, I think you should all let me know in the comment section below who you think your top 3 will be. Also, another crazy thing I noticed doing research for this video is the amount of number 2 teams there has been this season. Coming into this season, it was all Iowa. Then literally a week later, Cornell jumped into the number 2 spot. Then those sneaky Missouri Tigers said, I'll take that spot, before the ACC said, I'll take it, with the Wolfpack barking their way in there. And they honestly stayed there for a good while before the Cornhuskers of Nebraska wanted to crack at it. Then Iowa, who seemed to come out of nowhere, took the number 2 spot again, before Missouri swept it back into the fold. Then it went back to Iowa before another team in Oklahoma State was showing some real promise, before we now reach the present with Iowa State, who lost to 2 former number 2 teams at this point, is currently in the runner-up spot. Phew. You know, for all we know, none of these teams could really be the second best team in NCAA wrestling. And hey, I'm here for the madness, and if you are too, be sure to like and subscribe and enjoy the ride with me. Also, before I let you all go, if you live in the Northeast Ohio area, my buddy Chris Doyle and former national finalist Dave Havett are starting a wrestling club in Medina, Ohio called Elevate Wrestling Academy. I really appreciate you give them a follow on all their socials, and of course go to the wrestling club, which I will link all of that in the description below. Also, if you are interested, don't be shy to shoot me a message or comment in the comment section below. Now, with all that said, take care, everybody. Oh, also, here's my top 4 predictions. And yes, I know there's only 3 team trophies now, and I've said 3 all video, but let's just do 4 for fun. My predictions are Penn State, the Missouri Tigers, Michigan Wolverines, and screw it, Lehigh, let's ride.